At the NACS State of the Industry Summit, there was a lot of talk about the growth of food service, which has more than doubled in the last 20 years and now stands at around 29% of in-store sales. We also talked about the one thing that could stop continued growth, and that is taking your eye off the ball with food safety. That's going to be the topic of our discussion today. Joining us for our discussion today is the right person at the right company. It is Evan Powell. He is Retail Food Protection Manager at Kwik Trip with a K, who is a leader in the space in terms of food safety, what needs to be done, and what are they doing. So thanks for joining us today, Evan.
Thank you for having me.
So start out, the reason we're talking today is the cover story of the July NACS magazine was all about what took place at the Food Safety Forum earlier this year. It's a hook to talk more deeply about food safety and why it matters and why it continues to matter. And let me start out with a question unrelated to the Food Safety Forum, but just in general, there's a lot of discussion about the term food safety culture. And for those not familiar with it, I think a lot of people think of food safety and they think of culture, and they may not put them together. Can you talk about what food safety culture is at its core?
Definitely, yeah. I would say food safety culture, it's probably one of the hottest topics when it comes to food safety and food protection. The thought process behind it is that food safety should be not so much of a task that needs to be completed. It's not just a cost center department in the organization, but it is something that's just the right thing to do for the people who consume your food and for the organization with regards to risk management from the risk of a foodborne illness outbreak. So, you don't want a coworker to be rolling their eyes when they go back in the kitchen and wash their hands, or feel annoyed to have to go check temperatures in your hot and cold holding units, things like that. You want it to just be second nature. It is just part of the job. It's just part of working in a kitchen in a convenience store. So when, those tasks come about, it really should just be, they should pay it no mind. It should just happen. And I think that comes from support from the organization, from top down. All of your leadership buys into it and talks about it. It's not just the food safety department that's talking about food safety training. And, explaining the why behind the importance of food safety, that, you have people, you have families, you have children trusting you to provide safe food. And when you think about that and you can kind of compare it to maybe their lives and their families and their children, when they go out to eat somewhere, or maybe they grab food from a convenience store or a Kwik Trip such as ours, hopefully it becomes second nature and they understand, this isn't just another task they have to get done because we said so. But it's the right thing to do, and it's just second nature.
It is growing. It is the ability to continue to grow, the most important category we have. And done right, there is room for growth. And really the message is it's not about a task. It's about advancing the future of our industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. We talk so much about food as our future. I feel like there's so many sessions with the food service category at NACS and we're talking about it, state of the industry, and it just seems like the way forward. I know it has been for Kwik Trip for 20 some years now, and we see food as our future. And ultimately, hand in hand with the sale of the food has to be the safety and the quality of that food. I always mention it in my training. I was just at a retail meeting yesterday, actually, doing my spiel about food safety. And the fact of the matter is, there is a bit of a stigma with gas station food. I think there's people out there that won't eat food from a gas station. We don't want it to be that way, and I think we've come a long way as a destination for food compared to the QSRs of the world out there. But when you already have, some people that maybe have that negative perception of your food program, and they think of the worst roller grill they've ever seen, right? And maybe an unclean convenience store they were in the past, and maybe that they didn't want to buy food from there. You're fighting even harder uphill to make people trust in your food service programs, and that the food coming from your store is safe and of high quality. So when you already have that going on, you just got to talk about it more and more, right? And so I talked about it being the right thing to do for the guests that trust you, but also for business operations wise and food sales and growing that category, it's an important piece as well.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest word to throw out when we talk about food safety culture is the behaviors, right? And Evan, you touched on that, the behaviors that you want to see within your organization, that people are just doing the right thing, because that's the behavior. That is the expectation of the employees, that food is handled safely, that the systems are in place, that we're following the systems, no one's going rogue. Mm-hmm. And it is an expectation, like you said, that when customers come into stores, that they get, safe, quality food. And like you said, it is an uphill battle. There are places out there that, maybe have exceptional food. I was reading an article about a gas station kind of local to us that has probably one of the best burgers in the area. But then the other part of the article said, just don't look at the walls, don't look at the floor. So yeah, I mean, it makes for a good article, but that's, as a customer, should that be a trade-off? I'm not convinced, but yeah, I mean, you can have a great burger, but I need to know that is a clean establishment where the people who are handling the food that is being prepared are doing so safely and that they care.
Yeah, that you're exactly right. A lot of it does come down to behaviors, and like I said, you just want them to understand, the importance behind it, and that it's not just another task to complete. And I hate to say it, I'm right there with you. I think I'm one of those people that would walk into the convenience store. Maybe I'm hungry. Maybe I'm looking at their prepared food section, and if you run into the bathroom first and it's kind of filthy, you got to wonder what type of condition the kitchen is in, and how the food is being prepared. So, you're absolutely right. It ultimately it can be so much. It can be operationally growing food service and prepared food sales in your store. It could even be guest perception of the rest of your store. They might not even stop for gas next time if they think the inside of the store was dirty. So there's just so many different ways you can peel off it, but at its root, it of course is tremendously important.
Yeah, I think perception is the key word that you just said too, because when we talk about food service, a lot of times we go right into the prepared food, right? We go right into what, is either made from a touch screen to order, customized, all that good stuff. But really food service within our industry also is the fountain area. It's the coffee bar. It's the commissary sandwiches that maybe you have from a third party, vendor, or you do yourself if you're vertically integrated, like Kwik Trip is.
Yeah.
And then look at that coffee bar too. Like if a customer comes in and it just is a hot mess and it hasn't been cleaned, or they go to pull the lever and nothing comes out, it is that perception. And that's, you want them to try your food as much as possible.
And not get sick from it.
Yeah, it's, that's the bathrooms, not clean condiment bars, anything. Every details matter to customers when we're selling food.
So hot dispense should not be a hot mess. That's the message we got there.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Chrissy, you wrote the cover story of the July issue of NACS magazine and built out the agenda for the Food Safety Forum. When I walked into that room and saw what it looks like compared to the first Food Safety Forum a couple of years ago, my first reaction is this is its own conference. It has grown that much. There's that much now in terms of attention to the issue that may not have existed a couple of years ago, at least in terms of conference attendance. Can you walk us through a little bit of some of the discussions that, and Kwik Trip obviously had a key presence this year in terms of CEO is there, other folks were there from the company supporting it, but kind of take us through what that event looked like and what were the big takeaways.
Yeah, I just want to back up a second, though. I don't want, speaking of perceptions, just because NACS has had this event doesn't mean this industry wasn't doing exceptional in the area of food service. It just was our way of being able to bring folks within our industry together. And because convenience store food service, the convenience store industry, there is not a one size fits all model by any means. Everyone's programs, can go from like very, very sophisticated to, you got, kitchens and raw protein coming in and, all kinds of stuff being made to order on site to someone who's not doing that, right? So their level of what they need to do for food safety is different. So like a lot of things in the convenience store industry, we try to be a little bit one size fits all for the audience that we're serving. And I think food safety is a topic where if you have, one store or, 12,000, the very like basic tenets of what, needs to happen are all there for every size operator. And to bring, all the, people, I'd say for this past Food Safety Forum, we did have the small operator to the very large global ones. So we do run, that, the size and the scope of the industry is all in the room. I think what is most unique about this and why we started to do it is no one else is really done it. So a lot of the food safety events that are out there for either, for retail in general to go to, there was no convenience store specific one that I was aware of. So we were lucky enough to work with, Dr. J, who is with you, Evan, and then, Jeremy from EG, Nancy from Wawa, a handful of other folks to put together this really great agenda and bring people together. And we've been doing that now for 4 years. So going into our 5th year next year, as one attendee said, he's like, you guys need a bigger boat. So we are going to do a standalone event. We've grown it to that. That is a need. And I think the interest that we've seen from the industry, honestly, I think I could just get everybody in the room for 3 hours and let them talk and they would still find value. I don't even need to put a PowerPoint up. It just is a group that really wants to connect and learn from each other, because it's not just with our industry, but across other industries, I've heard it said, is that food safety is not a competitive advantage. Everybody's in. If one falls, we all fall. So, and it's protecting public health, there's absolutely zero reason why everybody selling food or making food can't rally behind that.
Can I jump in there real quick? I want to echo what you said, because it's so true. We've never considered food safety as a competitive advantage, and it seems so silly that anyone would ever do so. It's so great to get together. I thought the forum was awesome this year. I'm so excited for the standalone event next year. I think, in general, if you think about it, we could really wind up in a tough spot. I already talked about the fact that some people have a negative perception of food from a gas station. And if there were, we're talking about, of course, about protecting public health, and it's unacceptable that anyone would ever get sick from food. Foodborne illness really is entirely preventable. But even beyond that, just talking a little bit more about the industry, if we were in the headlines for anyone any gas station was in the
Yeah.
headlines for causing a foodborne illness outbreak, there'd just be that many more people that don't ever buy food from a gas station again. Not just that gas station, but all of them. So I think that's the value of this food safety forum getting together, and we're all running into the same issues too.
Yeah.
The themes of talking about traceability and food safety culture and those other hot topics that came up this year are just something that is important to everyone that has a food service program.
Yeah, and that was one of the sessions that we had too with Sean Stevens and Amy Costello from Casey's, was trust and building trust within your company and your organization that you are serving and selling safe food to your customers. And you pointed out a very significant hurdle that the industry, some have to overcome, some are lucky if they don't. But it is a reality, and the more elevated and sophisticated that the food gets within a C-store space, trust is super important.
Yeah, there was, I'll clean this up because we don't want to go to one of these, rated podcasts, but a former chairman said something to the effect of it only takes one mess up to ruin a whole bunch of attaboys. And just going back to what you said, Evan, it's like if a burger chain, fill in the blank, has an issue, the general public won't say we should avoid all burger chains. They're going to say, let's take this one and think about it. But if we're all in this together, as you said, because of perceptions, we're looking to change them every day, working hard with what we do and how we talk. But there still is that thing that it is gas station, and that it's going to be framed that way. And it doesn't matter if you are best in class or you're in the middle or you're at the lower end, you're all going to be treated the same way. And that's I think what really impresses us about how Kwik Trip has stepped up over the last however many years, encouraging us to go to your in-service events, which you hold every year, and you invite a variety of stakeholders to tour your facility, and you bring suppliers, you bring in legislators, you bring in other retailers that are interested, and it's like here's how we think, here's what we believe.
For a while, our food safety in-service, we're heading into our 14th year here of hosting a food safety event on our campus, because we are a larger convenience store that has had pretty good food protection systems in place for a while, and we do recognize the importance of sharing that with everyone. It started out more as Jay would call it a three-legged stool, where we bring the regulators in, we bring in representatives from the FDA and the state health departments or departments of agriculture that we work with that regulate us with regards to the food code. And we bring in our suppliers, QA people, and invite them. This is a free to attend event. And they will come and we'll have speakers, cover relevant topics like traceability, like a lot of the similar stuff that we talked about at the forum. And ultimately just show that we can all sit in a room and talk about this stuff. I know it's, here's an inspector, and, some organizations may have a negative perception of that because, of a health inspection or, just regulations seeming like a hurdle more than anything. But they do exist to keep the food safe, obviously. And, being proactive with that relationship and having that open and transparent communication with them is it's gonna get you a long way with, you much rather have that communication channel open before you need it, which of course would probably be unfortunately a negative thing when they're calling you. So letting them know how your programs work and everything is very important. And that was the gist of the in-service. Not that it still isn't, that is what it is at its core, but we have invited other convenience store food safety people to the event who can attend, because again, it's not a competitive advantage, and they can come in and they can come on the tours and see what we do in our, vertically integrated facilities with our kitchens commissary or bakery or dairy. And we'll go on those tours and they can see that. Obviously, we're talking more about the food safety programs and those, but they can see it, and it's no problem to us, because we're just trying to advance the industry as a whole with regards to food protection. So very excited for this year again. I'm really glad that the forum has come about for an even more formal place for the convenience store industry to gather to talk about food safety as well. It's been really good.
I'm planning on going to your event this year. I think this will be my 5th.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great event. What's to keep other retailers from doing it? Why not?
No, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'll talk about food safety as long as anyone will let me. You guys might have to cut me off of this podcast here, but I think we're a lot similar in that aspect. And you already mentioned them, but such great relationships with Amy from Casey's, Amy and Melanie, Jeremy from EG, and Nancy from Wawa, and the crew that comes to the forum. They've been to our in-service before too, and this group of folks that will get behind food safety and be willing to talk openly about their programs. I know for each of us, larger groups such as Kwik Trip or a Sheetz or a Casey's or something like that, there's plenty of small operators that are maybe feeling the pressure a little bit more and haven't navigated this, but want to get into the food space. So we are here to help.
Yeah, very much.
So we have a couple options. We have the standalone food safety forum that NACS has. There's all kinds of resources that are on the NACS website. As I mentioned, the cover issue of the July NACS magazine. And always looking to add more to allow people to learn more about how they can grow food safety and food service together. Mm-hmm. So thanks for joining us today, Evan, and thanks for what Kwik Trip does in sharing and talking about the importance of food safety and helping to grow that share of food service as much as it can, because it's a differentiator. If you are only selling packaged items, your competition is AutoZone, Home Depot. Everyone sells packaged food and beverages. Food service is a differentiator, and we see that in state of the industry numbers. It's also a way to differentiate your profits from done right from others that are not as successful in food safety and food service.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you as well, and thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.